Yes, here's another one of those interviews with Maurice Kirk that I referred to. We recorded them in England a few days ago. And in here we're discussing a recurring theme, and we just trying to discuss lawyers. Now, Maurice has had considerable dealings with lawyers in their various uniforms that they wear, representing him, prosecuting him, judging him. He's had dealings with them over many years, 25, 30 years I think he's talking about. But it's this accumulation of aggravation. There's something lacking about law. As old George Bernard Shaw said, all professions are a conspiracy against the laity. And obviously it was George Bernard Shaw being a little bit funny, but there's a hell of a lot of truth in what he said there. In this context, Maurice is a professional man. He's a veterinary surgeon. I think it's one of the longest professions. The gestation period to become a professional is one of the longest. But he's a professional man. As he explains, he comes from a professional family. But nevertheless, when you're confronted with the lawyers and the whole structure that goes with it, there's something very seriously wrong. Why they haven't stepped in and said, look, appointed him an amicus curiae to sort it out, or whatever process. It seems so futile that they have to have this constant battle. Here he is, this is what he has to say. It's not altogether coherent. It rambles, as Maurice does, he rambles on. When you've got 30 odd years of accumulation, it's inevitable. The threads get a bit worn. You don't quite, the general public, if you come cold to this, you probably won't understand what's going on.
Why not?
Now, you're a professional man. Your family has got a lot of professional people in it, or had, I mean, most of
Yes.
demise.
Oh, Richard.
You've dealt with a lot of lawyers. You're not represented now, as I understand.
I can't find one. I've had the machine gun trial, which was won, and it's a foregone conclusion. That was 10 years ago, and in order to stop me proceeding with my civil claims, because remember they'd lost over 50 malicious criminal prosecutions, and I thought, well, it's no good, I'm going to have to sue them. Well, that's gone on for 28 years, and the High Court judges have stopped me from appealing the single judge decision in Guernsey, in South Wales. It was like the incestuous world of Guernsey. I mean, here was 300 witnesses, they wouldn't let me have them. And when we had the hearing of the 100 or whatever we had, about 50 witnesses or whatever, they wouldn't release the court records of each of the 50 failed criminal prosecutions. I couldn't even get the court records because I just kept winning. Well, if you haven't broken the law, it's a lot easier to win. That aeroplane's back to do more practice false landings.
He's going to land in front of us soon.
Anyway, lawyers. Well,
you see, I'm like a character like you. You challenge the system on various things. I mean, obviously, I presume you want a quiet life, ultimately, like everybody else. But things happen, don't they?
No, but the thing about lawyers, they can be nobbled by the tafia. We call it the tafia. These are the very evil core of the corruption within South Wales. There could be lawyers, judges, policemen, school prefects. You know, they are there, and they worship the devil. I won't beat about the bush. But if a lawyer steps out of line because somebody has made a big mistake, like me, they have made some serious mistakes in law, which unfortunately, due to court restrictions, I can't talk about it. But by the rule of law, I've just spent 5 years in prison now on an issue that I can't talk about, other than that I've now spent 5 years in prison.
Now, you've obviously tried to argue your own case. Has any lawyer, to your reckoning, effectively tried to argue
Oh yes,
your case.
they've one or two of them, who I won't name without their permission first, have said, "You're right, Maurice. That is the letter of the law." And I said, "Well, why can't somebody step in?" Now, the whole game they've been playing with me since 28 years ago, when I was arrested for stealing my own big BMW motorbike outside the surgery, and they jailed me, and in court they said, "We don't know who he is. Well, he'll stay in the prison until we can identify him." They all knew I was the veterinary surgeon for the South Wales Police. I did a lot of the emergency night work, and 4 days in prison before they let me out. I mean, that's the beginning of it. And its case number is BS 614159, and because you can look it up on the computers. But they won't let me appeal. I took, soon as I had the judgment, and I wrote a 64-page statement as the claimant, and the minute we got the judgment, which was rubbish, I went straight up to London, because you've got to do it within 2 weeks or 3 weeks, 2 weeks I think, and the court in Guernsey, where is it? South Wales. The Royal Courts of Justice wouldn't accept it, and I said, "Why not?" "Well, it has to be sealed. It has to go stamp." And it took me 16 more months to get the judge on the day of his retirement to have it stamped. But of course, then I'd lost all my papers. They put me in prison like backwards and forwards like a yo-yo. They kept losing far more cases, and each time they snatch and confiscate all my legal papers. And computers. I've had my car smashed in. I mean, in Cardiff, I've been broken into. Oh, it's deliberate. I mean, it's all set up for me to part with my records, to pursue that appeal. Now, I've had one lawyer recently, a barrister, he said, "Oh no, they've broken every rule in the book." I said, "Yes, I've had all this in Guernsey." I said, "It's incestuous, like you lot are. He can't put a foot wrong, or he can't work, and he can do no more."
I mean, I live in Jersey, the small jurisdiction, as you know, and we hear these tales, and we research them as best we can, about the failures of the judicial system and the lawyers, everything that goes with it. And I'm constantly thinking, why don't other lawyers leap in? Why don't they? Why aren't they concerned for their own profession?
Devil worship, you know that. The running of the Channel Islands is devil worship, and I have never seen such a high level of Masonic power as I've seen in South Wales.
Really?
Oh, and it's accepted. I had the privilege of going before current Lord Chief Justice, the new one, Burnett, his Lordship Burnett. And give you an example, I was there just before I got jailed for 2 years, so it was 2 years ago. Few days before, I had to put someone else up as the front. Janet Kirk, my first wife, she very loyal lady, came to one of my court cases. I was in custody. I can't remember which case it was. Oh yes, it will be the subject that I'm not allowed to talk about. That's been that for the last 10 years, and each time. And the judge said, "Stop writing." And Janet was in the gallery taking notes. And I said, "Oh no, we aren't allowing that. You've done that to Janet. I'm going to fight you." And we finished up eventually before our new Lord Chief Justice. And I said, "Look, a certain friend of mine where I'm staying the night in London on Monday, so I'm in London for 2 days, he did it as being a person in the gallery, but I'm riddled with it because it was all about me, because it was my court case, and their lordships, we're going to give you this one, Mr. Kirk." is Mr. Kirk here? And I ducked down and hid underneath, because I wasn't going to be there. I had a dirty clothes on. I'd been travelling. I forget what I'd been doing. I had no intention of addressing a court, and everybody laughed, and they all pointed back at this in the Royal Courts of Justice, number 1. What are they? Usually number 4 court. Usually in the Royal Courts of Justice, because I used to go before what's his name? The one before that.
Oh,
but it begins with B. Long story about that one. Anyway, he said, well, we'd like to hear from you, Mr. Kirk. And I went up there and I said, it's a basic human right that it's a public court and we are allowed to take notes, and we won it. And it became case law, and it's now they quote it. They quoted under the chap who did it. I don't think they wanted.
Well, I called into the Jersey court to see or hear a case which I knew nothing about last week, and I was ceremoniously removed from the court because they decided to hold it in private. It was only when I arrived that they decided to hold it in private. Now, they wouldn't let me address the court on the matter because I didn't know what the case was, but I thought I would have raised the matter about public interest or whatever goes on, unless there's some extraordinary reason. Now, this is an international case and it's got all sorts of implications for it. It's been heard in Guernsey, it's been heard in the Privy Council, it's been heard in all these places and has been reported. But as soon as I appeared, it went in private. Now, you sort of get a feeling about those sort of things, don't you? You wonder whether, have I got something on the end of my nose, or what is it?
No, it's become in my lifetime. We were very. I was brought up. My mother kept being asked to be a magistrate, and Dad never had the time. And we had absolute respect for law and order, the rule of law, because it's been looked at by bright people, and they've sieved it out. And then you've got the people who elected people to take the final decision. Do we make this a law? Now, I'm.
What I want to ask is, I love the 18th century. Not that I would have liked it very much.
Code Napoleon.
But before, John Wilkes,
Yes.
great national hero, British
Yes.
hero.
Yes.
But he was an awkward sod like you. That's all he was. But for some reason, I mean, he was a Mason. I think that probably helped. But why is it that some people can be provocative, challenge the system like you do, and they're worshipped, but other people
Genesis
are hated?
Is it Genesis chapter 2 verse 4? And pull the wool over your eyes. Thou shalt not hide your light under a bushel.
Right.
You've heard me say this. My parents told me, if you're born with a gift,
Right.
disseminate, teach people. I come from a very privileged background. I have just been 2 years in where the human detritus washed down from the valleys of Wales, and it turns out to be the detritus, the nasty ones, come from Cardiff and Swansea, and the drug dealers from Tottenham in London. They go down there to make their money. They dominated, and I felt it was insulting the Welsh in the valleys, because they are still running a family unit with control, and they're very proud. And every time I see Aneurin Bevan, his statue, I salute him. But I'm terribly anti-NHS because it's burnt its time.
Aspects about Wales which I want to discuss with you. Whether we will have a little. I'll close this interview now, and we'll discuss what we can discuss about Wales.
Okay.